Saludos and salutations, Broncos Country, and welcome to another exciting episode of Broncos Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, that's probably the most excitement you're going to get out of me today. I can't promise you anymore. It literally took me a whole lot just to work up just for the intro, just because I didn't want to let you guys down. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot to talk about. We have the unfortunate duty of having to let you guys know what the outcome was this past weekend against the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, you don't need me to tell you what happened, but we're going to talk about it anyway. We're also going to deep dive into what is going to happen in the future, what's going on with Denver, what's probably going to happen, what could happen, what may happen, what may not happen, who may be staying, who might be going, and just what in the frick happened. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you sit down, buckle up, get that beer and popcorn or whatever it is you have handy next to you, snack ready, because here we go. Also, I can't promise you I'm not going to curse, but I might have to drop one or another because, I just can't help it. Every time I think about it, I'm just sitting back looking, and all I can think is mother.
Broncos talk, let's rock, feel the energy rise. From the microphone to the fans reaching the skies. Every episode a thrill and surprise. For the love of the game, we harmonize.
Now, I know what you're thinking. You thought I was going to do it. But I didn't do it because then I was going to let Johnny Baki down, and I hate letting that man down. But ladies and gentlemen, I can guarantee you, and my co-host will vouch for me, that I did plenty of swearing before we went live on the air, and so much more at the end of Sunday's game. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Broncos Talk. I am your host, Alan Diaz, and joining me as always to my right is my co-host, Bronco Libre. Bronco, how you holding up, my friend?
You know, it's been a rough couple of days, but you know what? There's always next year.
I swear that should probably on my bumper right now, like a bumper sticker. There's always next year,
Right?
because at this point we really don't have any other choice. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're brand new to the show, first of all, welcome. We do have a couple of things we have to get out of the way before we start talking any and all things football. First, if you'd like to follow me or Libre on Twitter/X, you can hit us up. There are socials at the bottom. For those of you listening us to on audio after the fact, or if you're not able to join us here live, please make sure you hit that live notification button. 5-star ratings and reviews are always well appreciated. Please screenshot them and send them to us so that way we know and we can see and we can shout you out here on the show. And thank you for your support. Also, for those of you that are watching us here during the show, or live, I should say, please make sure you subscribe, share, comment, and like here on the Orange and Blue Network. Ladies and gentlemen, there are lots of great shows here on the network. Also got a couple great shows coming down the pipeline. I can't share it with you now, but Johnny Baki made me put it in the safe, and he's the only one that's got the key. I don't know where he keeps it. I don't want to know where he keeps it, but when he's ready to share it with the world, he will let you know. Also, make sure you catch the flagship show, Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast, that airs every single Tuesday with Johnny Baki and Isaiah Henderson, the founders of the Orange and Blue Network. Also, we are also streaming on the MHRT network. So please make sure you subscribe, share, comment, and like on all of their networks and shows. Not networks, on all their shows as well. There's always something great for you to watch. Shout out to my good friend Richie Rich over at the Wild Wild West podcast and all those guys over there. They're doing a great, fantastic job. And also to Mundungus and Glenn and just everybody over there. Bronco Bill. I'm pretty sure we're all sharing the same pain today. But shout out to all those guys for continuing to putting out great content throughout the season. And also, ladies and gentlemen, we are being sponsored today by Dubby. For those of you guys that don't know, Dubby is see, I'm so sad I forgot I can't click buttons. Dubby is the energy supplement that you need. Stop taking those very, very not healthy for you energy drinks or all that extra stuff you put on your coffee. Ladies and gentlemen, Dubby is here for you. Now, you might be asking yourself, what's so great about Dubby? Well, I'm glad you asked because I'm going to tell you. Dubby was formulated to give you focus and energy with no jitters or crash. Their formula contains vitamins, amino acids, and nootropics, including the patented Neurofactor formula. There's no calories, no sugar, no maltodextrin, no fillers, and no artificial colors. Ladies and gentlemen, Dubby is all of the good stuff without all of the bad. It helps you give you that energy for when you just need it on certain days where you just kind of need that little boost. They have so many great flavors. And ladies and gentlemen, if that's not convincing enough, when you go to checkout, our friends over at the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast are giving you 10% off at checkout. So make sure you use the code NRWOB10 to get your 10% off at checkout for any and all the flavors you have in your basket. Shout out to Johnny and all the guys over at Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue for the 10% off. Make sure that you go and thank them every Tuesday or hit them up on their socials. Ladies and gentlemen, big shout out to Dubby for being a sponsor for today's show. Also, for any business inquiries, you can email at broncostalk2020@gmail.com. I think that's everything. You know what, Libre? I'm still in shock, man. Like, I really am. Like, if I could do like a half day, I probably would be, just leave half day. But unfortunately, we can't. We have to ride this out. We have to talk about this because it is part of our job. Ladies and gentlemen, the Broncos fell to the Buffalo Bills. I'm not even going to say the score because the score, to me, doesn't do it any justice. It started with such great promise, Libre, and what was supposed to look like a shootout just kind of turned into a one-sided game after halftime. Now, me and you were talking before the show where we kind of felt that the Broncos were still in it going into halftime, and when they came back out, they kind of looked like a whole team that, like they just had the life sucked out of them. And for me, it was very discouraging because the Broncos all season were played really tough on the road. If you look at some of their road wins in the past season, they came back and they played tough. They made the adjustments that needed to be made. And in this one, they didn't do anything really to stop James Cook. Me and you talked about that broken coverage play where Patrick Surtain literally just got caught snoozing, and then the Bills went in and scored a touchdown. So I feel like the momentum was there for the Broncos to win it. They just didn't capitalize. Now, granted, they were playing with house money. I know everybody's been saying that a lot around Broncos Country the last couple of days, especially leading up into that game. But I will say, before I turn it over to you, that I'm proud of those guys. I really am, because this was a team, and you guys have heard us say it all season. You've heard it on other podcasts, and we're going to keep saying it until the first snap of 2025, that these guys were not supposed to be a playoff team. They were only supposed to be like a 4 or 5. Pick whichever one of the top 5s are in the draft right now. The Broncos were supposed to be one of those, especially starting Bo Nix. And I am so glad that they did. And before I go into it, Libre, your thoughts on the game on Sunday.
That first drive when, us going in there and right away going down, scoring that touchdown. Yeah, just like everyone else, we thought that this was going to be a high-scoring game, shootout. Is it going to be a great shootout? And then nothing happened for the Broncos. But again, as well, the Bills weren't doing much anything in the first half as well. We were doing such a great job within that part where they kept us in there. We're in that game during that whole time. Even midway through the third quarter, we're still in that game. And it just, little by little, finally they were starting to pull away from us, which was sad to see. Like, it was very sad to see itself, because you could just see them, just their confidence was starting to grow a little bit more and more, just because of what they were capable of doing against us. But overall, for this season, I'm super excited for this season. The way that how it happened, it's sad that the way it ended, because we had different expectations now that we got into the playoffs. But the way that we were, like how you said earlier, we weren't even expected to even be in this type of situation itself. But for us to be in there, to finally get there after 8 long seasons without the playoffs itself, now that we're there, I can see this going forward. We have a nice young core group of kids here that are now playing, that are going to continue to play for us here. Our team's going to be dangerous over the next several years. And I think this is the last year, I think, with the Chiefs, where they're finally going to be starting to dwindle down, because who knows how much longer Travis Kelce is going to be there. How much is Mahomes really going to be that productive? Like, he wasn't that productive this year itself. But I'm excited for this team in the future. Can't wait for it.
Now, I will say the one thing, and the point that was brought out to me by one of my Uber passengers when I was a couple days ago, and for the first time in a long time, I had probably the most I don't know if enthusiasm is the right word, but like the most chitty chatty customers, and thank God none of them talk smack about the Broncos, because I was ready to fight. But they were all just pretty much pat on the shoulder, like, hey man, good, better luck next year type of conversation. So I appreciate them for that. But one of them brought up a good point to me, and that's just basically that they're hoping that what we have in Bo Nix isn't the same thing we have with Drew Lock, which was a really good point, because if you think about it, Drew Lock's first year wasn't as what we saw with Bo Nix, but it was giving us, he's the quarterback of the future-ish vibes, because Drew Lock in his first year in Denver did struggle, and then we were so sure that he was going to be the quarterback of the future, and then it turns out he wasn't. However, what I argued against that point was that what Drew Lock messed him up, or what was one of the first things, was the fact that the offensive coordinator changed. So
yep.
when they let go of what's his name? Shoot, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But when they let him go, that's when the whole, they changed the entire gameplay. So it was almost like a new system for Drew Lock, and to me, that kind of put him in a bad spot, because he wasn't able to kind of he wasn't able to recapture that same magic we saw when he was in his rookie year. So what I'm hoping is, when we go into next season, even though we know that Sean Payton is the one that calls the plays and Vic Lombardi is just pretty much holding a clipboard, if they do decide to give Lombardi a chance, if he's still the offensive coordinator next year, maybe give him a shot to call some plays, because this past Sunday, Lee Ray, we did see a lot of questionable plays that were just kind of like, head scratchers. For some reason, the Broncos keep trying to do like the wide receiver screens, even though we don't really have the line or the tight ends for it. On the first screen, if you notice, McGlinchey got completely blown past the line, and that screen went absolutely nowhere. So unfortunately, we don't really have the line to execute a lot of those screens, or the offense isn't ready yet to disguise them. A lot of the screens that you saw, if you watched some of the other games in the wild card, when they ran screens, either their offensive linemen where they needed to be, or they disguised them well enough where it looked like it was going to be a run, but it was a screen. It looks like it was going to be play action, but it was a screen. So they were able to disguise their screens very well, and they were able to get some production out of it. That's something that the Broncos offense has to work on going forward. Also, while we're on the subject of, future, the running back, it just like consistency. That's something I didn't even notice. I actually read about it in one of the posts. I don't know where I read it from today, but it actually made a whole lot of sense, where it was just kind of like the running game. You need a consistent runner. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing if you run a different running back to give the current one a break, the workhorse. That's one thing. But when you're constantly putting in Williams and then McLaughlin and then Williams and then McLaughlin and then Estime, and then So it's like a merry-go-round of running backs, and they're not playing, to give the other one a breather.
Mhm.
It's just like there's no consistency. You know what I'm saying? So, and unfortunately, we already know that Williams he knows he's not welcome in Denver next year. I know he says he wants to play in Denver, but everybody in Broncos country is already kind of just like, you know what, this isn't going to work.
Mhm.
And we've already seen that the management, they're not afraid to shell out money for a big name running back if they need to. So I can't think of any running backs like big, like no Derrick Henrys or Saquons that are going to hit the market next year. But if they were, then maybe next year's not exactly the year where the Broncos can really shell out a lot of money because they're still on the hook for one more year of that dreadful Russell Wilson contract. But the next year is not going to be as big as what this year was. So, Libre, what are your thoughts on that?
So going back to the offensive line play, how you were talking about McGlinchey getting blown up on that play, I agree. Like our line, I think what's happening right now is with our line is we're doing a lot of zone blocking and then getting to the second level within the zone blocking itself. I saw on NFL Network earlier this week that they brought up this exact scenario where we had too much zone blocking. Maybe what we need to do, and I think Sean Payton can hopefully do this, is we don't pull any of our tackles or any of the linemen at all. And if you look at some of these teams that have the good running backs right now, they have a pulling lineman to get out there, to get to that second level or whatever they need to do. But they're creating these extra lanes so that these running backs can either get out to the outside or make that one cut back into the middle of the line itself. If we can get something like that, I think if we can get the offense to play that way, and if we do have a pulling lineman, I think we'll be fine. Even if it is, say, Audric Estime or something like that, that's going to be in there and running the ball, I think it's going to be fine. But I feel like if we can do that aspect of it and actually do pulling linemen, I think it's going to be a great thing for us as a team to help build in the future as well. And then Javonte Williams, I feel like he's done. He's actually a free agent at the end of this year anyway, so he's not going to be signed with the Broncos. I don't feel like he's going to do that, or I don't feel like the Broncos will bring him back in. Again, and I also heard, like, especially with running backs, like how you mentioned, I don't see any actual running back, any veteran running backs itself. And hopefully, like, we can get and pull the Boise Bronco, be one Bronco to another Bronco if we can get him. But it's going to be hard. I don't think we're going to be able to get him at 20 because currently we're in 20th position for the draft. Unless we make some moves, which I don't feel like we need to just to get that type of pick. But I feel it's going to have to come through the draft, or we get lucky that somebody might come along and say, hey, I like what the Broncos are doing right now. Let's take a chance.
I mean, you never know, Libre. You got to remember, Lamar Jackson fell all the way to the bottom. So I'm just saying, never say never, bro.
Exactly.
But we got some comments here, Libre. Mark from GA jumps in. He thank you so much for your support, my friend. He says, if Vance Joseph decides to leave, Leonard will probably take over. That will be interesting. I'm just saying if. Now, it's funny you should mention that, Mark, because Libre and I were just having this conversation before we went on the air. And the crazy thing is that you guys remember what was his name of the guy that was in before Joseph got there? He's currently with North Carolina. Evero.
Evero.
Remember when we were all freaking out when Evero was leaving because Evero that one season coached what we thought was the greatest Broncos defense in a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
And then, Vance Joseph was brought in when we all thought we were going to get Vic Fangio back, but we got Vance. And then, I mean, I don't need to relive the first 3 weeks with Vance Joseph with you guys, but I'm a little bit torn on Vance Joseph, to be honest with you, because the first half of this year was just fantastic defensive football. And then the second half, as I was telling Libre earlier, like the Cleveland game, like I get it. We didn't have Riley Moss in that game, but the Browns shouldn't have been a shootout that way. The
No,
Broncos
correct.
defense let Jameis Winston look like somebody he definitely was. And if you don't believe me, go look at the Browns 2 games after the Broncos. Jameis Winston was nowhere near that caliber player again. Not
Nope.
even Jerry Jeudy. So they went in there. The Bengals game was a roller coaster. It shouldn't have been a roller coaster. If Bo Nix played the exact same way he did, the Broncos win that game. If the defense would have stepped up. Riley Moss, I'm telling you guys, I don't know what it is. I don't know if Riley Moss came back sooner. I don't know if he played scared. There's something wrong with what his gameplay, because even on Sunday against Buffalo, Riley Moss a couple of times was getting beat at the point of attack. And even PS2, Libre and I were talking about earlier, like the best way teams can beat PS2 is when they catch him in broken coverage. If you look back at any of the times PS2 got beat over the season, it's because it was in broken coverage where he thought they were in zone, but they were in man, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way teams can beat PS2 is by not so much tricking him, but waiting until he makes a mistake. And then you have what you saw with Curtis Samuel literally burning our Bronco secondary. The fact that they're not able to make the changes in the second half really, really bugged me. And before I turn it over to you, Libre, we said it earlier too. The Broncos on the road played a whole lot tougher than they did at home. That's why I was expecting this game to be a whole lot closer. I wasn't expecting the Broncos to win, but I also wasn't expecting the Broncos to lose the way they did by that percentage, because that score does not dignify how this team got to the playoffs.
So just going back to the game itself, one thing I think that hurt us definitely there in the second half, and talking about making those second half adjustments, is that our inability to actually run the football. If we could actually run the football and not have our quarterback being the number one rushing player on the team, I think that's where it really hurt us, especially in this game. Because if you look at what they have James Cook, who was able to go out there and run. They had Josh Allen, who was out there to run. Again, Josh Allen wasn't the leading rusher for the team. Bo Nix was the leader rusher for us. And I think that's really what put us one-dimensional in this game, and especially in the second half, where they just took advantage of it against us. So, and credit to them, they took those second half adjustments and made us one-dimensional, and then finally just beat us. But I think that's going to be one of the keys that we're going to need for this offseason, is to get somebody to come in here, going to be that running back who's going to be able to run the ball for us.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the only thing I hope Vance Joseph doesn't do is, Libre pointed out to me earlier, reminded me, is that he's supposed to interview with the Raiders. I don't know, tomorrow or sometime soon. So I really do hope he doesn't go to the Raiders. But regardless, if Vance Joseph decides to leave for a head coaching job, I just hope that the other teams realize or go back and see what he did when he was in Denver. Because, ladies and gentlemen, let's face the facts. There are just some guys that are not meant to be head coach, some way more than others. And if you don't believe me, I don't know if we talked about this in an overtime segment, but Mike Vrabel signing with New England, like, there's a reason he's not with Tennessee anymore. And granted, the times are actually worse with Brian Callahan than without Mike Vrabel. But at the same time, they didn't do him any favors when, Derrick Henry left and D-Hop left. So, like, your best two weapons, and the Titans don't have a quarterback. So it's anything short of a miracle that they actually kept them. They're probably, looking back of kind of giving like a Cinderella season of sorts and seeing what he can do when he can rebuild a team from scratch, because that's literally what the Titans are doing. But going forward, this is going to be key to see who the Broncos keep on staff, because depending on who stays, does Vance Joseph stay as defensive coordinator? Libre mentioned earlier that David Shaw was interviewed for the Bears head coaching job.
Yeah, yep.
And I can tell you, as somebody who lives in Chicago, there's a lot of people I talk to that some of them don't know who he is, and some of them don't want him here, just for the simple fact that it would be his first time as a head coach in the NFL. So, I mean, there's a lot of variables going into this, but ultimately the Bucks going to stop with Sean Payton, the head coach, because so far since he came to Denver, he's had Russell Wilson and he turned the team around. He has Bo Nix and he turned the team around. So
yeah,
all those guys that are currently on the team, Bo Nix will no longer be a rookie going into his sophomore year in the league. So it'll be really important to see what Sean Payton can do when the salary cap isn't his biggest enemy. You know, he's going to have a whole lot of more money going forward. The Broncos are still going to owe Russell Wilson for one more year, but it won't be anywhere near as what the dead cap was this year. So they're going to have more money to manage. But I will say to you, Libre, the one thing that I was afraid was going to hurt us was the fact that the Broncos sat on their hands in the trade deadline and they didn't trade for. If you would have got, I know, everybody wanted Njoku. I wanted Njoku too, or at least a wide receiver, one-ish caliber player. Yes, the Broncos didn't have any money to pay him. They would have probably have to given up draft capital, but you know, it's like that old saying, you got to spend money to make money, you know. But I strongly feel if the Broncos would have had that, maybe that could have given Bo Nix a little bit more leisure, because what we saw in Courtland Sutton on that third down, ball went right through his hands. Same thing with Vele. I don't blame him because he's a rookie. You know, he's still rookies drop balls, passes like that. That's stuff that they got to work on. But somebody as a veteran like, you know, Courtland Sutton, who we've seen make catches literally upside down and tiptoes and all that stuff, those are catches that man should make with his eyes closed. You know, there's no reason that ball should have went past his hands. So they also didn't do him any favors and making the offense punt the ball back, because the best way you beat any defense, Libre, whether you're good or the best, is just by wearing them the hell out. And the Bills' time of possession compared to Denver's was not even close.
Oh no, it was ridiculous. It was 3-1. And because of that itself, they just wore the defense down. That's the reason. That's the main reason why they're in the late in the third into the fourth quarter that they were able to put up the score on us, is because of that. Is that they were just on the field way too long, and we've seen this from other years past, especially the first season with Russ here, where we were 3-and-out, and our defense was good at that time as well. But it's just being worn down throughout the game, and there's not much you can do. You could have the number one defense in the league, but if you're out there, you know, 75% of all the plays, you're going to be worn out and tired, and you're going to give up huge plays, which they did. But going back to with the Russ contract or whatnot, this year we had like $90 million dead cap money, which included like Randy Gregory and all that's now falling off. So we have approximately, $34 million of dead cap money for this upcoming season, which is going to be all of Russ's contract that we owe him for this upcoming year. And what I also saw on the NFL Network, the Broncos are actually going to be sitting pretty good this year. They're actually the number 10th. I think they said the 10th team with the amount of money being able to go into this offseason. So with that being said, we're going to have some cash to play with for this upcoming season, where we're going to be able to, re-sign some of these key free agents that we have now here at the end of the season, where we can bring a couple of people back and maybe get some of these free agents that are going to be out there to help lure them here to Denver, which I feel we're going to have a good offseason. You know, Sean Payton is like one of those player coaches. You could say that he's kind of a player coach, you know, that people want to come and play, but I feel it's the culture here. It's also what the Penner Group, the Walton Penner Group, what they're doing right now. They're currently building a new training facility for the players. And how is that not an enticing thing for a player to come in saying, oh, look at this new shiny little toy that they're building out there for all the players and all that there in Dove Valley. So it's going to be pretty nice. I'm excited for it to be ready for next season, to see it out there. And when training camp comes, it's going to be very interesting over the next couple of months here to see what the Broncos are planning on doing.
Mm-hmm. And Shai Vargas jumping in. Shai, thank you so much for your support, my friend, for tuning in. He's got a question for us here, Libre. He's asking us, what position do the Broncos need? I
So
mean, you could literally spin a wheel, and no matter where it lands, it's just as important as the two answers next to it. But uh, to be honest with you, like to me, the first one is linebacker because as Libre and I told you guys last week, our biggest worry was James Cook, and James Cook must have hurt us because he was exactly what we thought he was going to be. Where it was even though the secondary kind of limited Josh Allen to not throwing the ball all crazy like he normally does, being Josh Allen, James Cook just completely cooked us. The Broncos defense only made the Bills punt, what was it, just once, maybe twice
yeah,
all
something like
game.
that.
The rest of the time, the Bills were able to convert. And if they couldn't get the touchdown, they were able to at least get the 3 points. So aside from that, that's not the way you're going to beat Buffalo. In order to beat a team like Buffalo, you have to make them punt the ball. The best way to beat any player like a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson, keep them on the bench. Just like the Bills did. The Bills didn't want to risk Bo Nix going out there and do what he did in that first drive. So the best way to beat him, keep him on the bench. But the linebackers are definitely something that the Broncos need to really either try to, find a diamond in the rough in the draft or go out and, I heard some people say, go out and get Micah Parsons. I don't think so because whoever comes in as a head coach, I don't know where the Cowboys are literally going to get the money to pay Micah Parsons because they're on the books for Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. But I mean, Jerry Jones is one of the richest people in the league. So, even though he can't use his own money, he probably make some promises or guarantees or whatever, and they'd work something out. It would take anything of a miracle to get Micah Parsons to Denver. But there's a lot of other good linebackers out there. I'm just so done with Sternad because there's just something about Sternad that I feel he took like a big step back this season. I know he was a big name, big hot commodity a couple of years ago. And Cody Barton to me, shoot, he was like fantastic in that Saints game. And I really thought we had something with him. But after that game, like he really didn't have any other big plays after that, he did have a couple of good tackles, good hits here and there, but no, he wasn't able to replicate anything like he did in that game against the Saints, where he literally was the MVP of that game. So I know Alex Singleton will be back. A lot of people in Broncos country are 50-50 on him. Some don't even think that the Broncos will keep him, that they might cut him just for the simple fact that, his injuries and all that stuff. So that's also something to keep in mind. But before I turn it over to you, Libre, I just think that linebackers are like the one thing that the Broncos need, because the one thing that made the Broncos dangerous when they blitz is, their D-line. That's why that's why they have the most notorious D-line in all of the league. And that's just my personal opinion, because they have the most sacks, but especially we've seen too many times, Libre, when the linebackers come in and they can't get their guy because of missed tackles or just they overran their route or whatever, and the quarterback in scrimmage or the running back, I mean, we got burned way too many times. So what are your thoughts?
Going back to what is our biggest need, for me, I think it's definitely tight end. We need a tight end that's going to be there, that's going to be that catching tight end, and that could just do a little bit of blocking itself. But we need that other threat for a tight end itself, that receiving tight end, true receiving tight end itself, because that's what we missed this year. If we can have that itself, that's not only going to help Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims out there doing their routes and whatnot, but that's throwing that other weapon in there for Bo Nix as another outlet. If we can have that type of player in there, I think that's really our number one person that we need to go after is a tight end itself. Second, I definitely it's another wide receiver. We need some help out there. I know that we have Vele, we have Franklin and so forth. They haven't. Vele probably did the most out of all the rookies. I thought Franklin was going to be out there because he has that Bo Nix connection that they're in Oregon and whatnot, which didn't really play out this year for some reason. But then you go back to linebacker, like how you were saying. I think that's the third position that we need is the linebacker itself. For me, Alex Singleton, like I feel like he is the guy I think that was the missing key for this year, especially late in the season itself. Um, his true toughness and grit. He played the rest of the game with a freaking torn ACL. Like, who does that? You don't know. I've never seen any other player ever do that. He played the rest of the game with that torn ACL, and then it's like, dang, that's like crazy for me. But I feel like they love Alex Singleton himself. I think they are just waiting for him to get healthy and get out there. And if he's going to do that, he's going to be our middle linebacker there. And I feel that will definitely help us out, especially with the run game itself and stopping it. And that was just really our missing piece. But like how you said, Cody Barton, he's a free agent this year as well. I think he's going to be a key sign that we need to get him back in. And I feel like him and Alex Singleton, just because I was at training camp and just watching them and the way that they communicate is phenomenal. And I think they have a good tandem with these two that I think they just need to be healthy at the same time and we'll be good to go. I think they just need to re-sign Cody. And then just like, again, let's just go with the free agents right now. We have Javonte Williams, there's Cody Barton, Justin Sternad, Little Jordan Humphrey, DJ Jones, Riley Dixon, Matt Pert, Michael Burton, Sherman Smith, Zach Cunningham, and then of course we need a backup quarterback at this point as well too, because both Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson are free agents, and then Quinn Bailey. So for me, like to get these of all this list right here, definitely I feel like we need to get Cody Barton. I think DJ Jones. I feel like we'll get Riley Dixon back because he's our punter. And then definitely Quinn Bailey, who's the right guard. We definitely need to keep that line together because he was a good backup when we needed him in there. He went in and played some good plays throughout the season itself. And if I'm going to pick between one of the two quarterbacks, between Jarrett Stidham or Zach Wilson, I feel like if we bring any of one of those two back, I think it's going to be Zach Wilson. The only reason why I say this is because we traded for him, and this is quote unquote Sean Payton's guy. You know, if you're trying to trade for him, you gave up some draft capital for him to come in, and I feel like they might go with him over Jarrett Stidham itself, even though he's been a healthy scratch all season long.
Well, I still think that they overpaid for Stidham. Like they gave him for a backup, they gave him a crazy amount of money, and then Drew Lock said, "Hold my beer," because then the Giants went and paid a ridiculous amount of money for him to be their backup quarterback. So, I do agree with you on that aspect, Libre. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to keep Stidham just for the simple fact, like maybe he agrees to a cheaper price. But then again, it all just comes back to see who tickles Sean Payton's fancy. To be honest with you, we really didn't need two backup quarterbacks. That just to me was just kind of like a waste of a roster spot. You literally could have put Stidham in the practice squad position if you wanted to. And then if somebody picked him up, then hey, God bless him. But the only other position I want to throw in there, just for the simple fact that I think we kind of underestimated it, is the safety position. I feel like PJ Locke, like we really needed him in that Ravens game because Key was just completely terrible. But at the same time, shout out to Brandon Jones, who literally played some great football in the safety position. But from PJ Locke, I don't even know off the top of my head if he even got a single interception. I know he was dealing with a hand injury, but at the same time, it was kind of like, he was supposed to be the reason make the Broncos look good and why they moved on from Justin Simmons the way they did. Yeah. And now there's rumors about that, maybe Justin Simmons might be coming back to Denver next season, which is just rumors at this point. But I do think that if we can find a good safety out there and maybe light a fire under PJ Locke to say, hey man, like you got to shape up or, ride the bench and be the backup, because Key definitely isn't a good. as the backup. And in that Ravens game, he exactly showed why he wasn't a starter. But in all those aspects, I totally agree with you, Libre. Tight end being like the number one. That's why a whole lot of people were pushing for a guy like Njoku,
Mhm.
because he definitely felt like he was the right piece where he could be that guy. And we saw what he could do in Cleveland. Now, I don't know what his contract or what his tenure with the Browns is looking like in terms of, if he's going to be a free agent this year or whatever. But if the they're supposed to, there was a guy that I saw from coming in from college that a lot of people want the Broncos to draft. Uh, I don't know if he's with Penn. I think he's with Penn State. I can't remember his name off the top of
Yeah.
my head, but
Yeah, I'm
he's a
not sure
tight
either.
end. He's a tight end, and I know that a couple people in Broncos country want the Broncos to pick him first round overall. So, but we'll see what happens when it comes to that. D Rock comes in and jumps in. He asks us, "Do y'all think Tillman is coming back next season?" Now, Tillman, I will say, was a pretty nice rotational piece. He did have a couple of times where he was able to bring in pressure. He wasn't exactly as dominant as the main defensive line, but he also helped fill in when he needed to. There were a couple of times where he had some missed tackles, but hey, that man sometimes came in like a bullet. And, one of the hardest things to do in that position is to, secure the tackle, which is something that the Broncos defense need to work on too, because there was way too many times where Zach Allen, especially Zach Allen, I forget what game that was, where it was a definite safety if he just wraps the quarterback up. So you mentioned DJ
Yeah.
Jones. DJ Jones, I know I was a little bit harsh on him, but at the same time, he was part of that really fearsome front line where, hey, they were getting to the quarterback. Stopping the run is something that the Broncos have to work on too, but that falls more on the linebacker than it does on the defensive line. Malcolm Roach was a really good pickup for the Broncos. He was a good
Yeah.
rotational piece there as well. So I do see Tillman coming back just for the simple fact that he's really good as a second piece. But if the Broncos decide to not bring him back, I wouldn't be surprised to see him rushing for another team.
For me, I feel like it's going to be the price. The price is right. If it's going to be a good price to bring him back in, Sean Payton, I feel like is going to say, "Let's bring him in. Let's bring him back in." The price has to be right. If it's not right, then they'll say, "You know what? We'll get somebody else." They'll bring. I feel like like I said, the DJ Jones is going to be that guy. I feel like we have to key on bringing in this during this offseason. But if not, there's the draft. You never know who's going to be available at the end of the year as well, like itself. But the price is right. I think Tillman can be back with us.
I wholeheartedly agree. Uh, it'll be interesting to see just who the Broncos decide to, bring back. I do think that we might see a couple of names in like that don't get. I mean, we were surprised by Justin Simmons last year. Now everybody thought that Simmons
Yeah.
was going to retire a Bronco. So, and that's kind of like the one thing that I like and I don't like at the same time about this management is like they're not afraid to put our favorite players, on the chopping block. But that just goes to show you that they're determined to win. If I can quote Penner, who did a press conference earlier today, and he put out this quote, and I quote: "While we're incredibly pleased with the progress and the number of accomplishments this year, we don't all feel like we're satisfied with where we are. We know this offseason is going to be another critical one for us to build for the future. Our fans are fantastic. Damn right. They had a long stretch where we tried their patience, and we feel like we're starting to deliver for them. Words are hard. The main message for them is we've got our sights set really high, and we're going to be doing everything we can to continue to build a great team and compete for championships." End quote. So that was Greg Penner, the voice of the ownership, who I feel comes out every year and tells us what we want to hear, and just kind of, it's like a nice pat on the back, like, hey man, we didn't do it this year, but next year it's going to be better. And last year he was right. We're better from where we
Yeah.
were last year, in terms of, we made a playoff game. And yes, we didn't win, which, hurts like it's supposed to. But reading something like that, especially from where we were before ownership changed, is just like a breath of fresh air. And I do honestly believe it. Now, the important thing, Libre and ladies and gentlemen, is that the Broncos have to attack in free agency. Last year, they didn't really make a splash. They couldn't because their hands were tied. This year, they're going to have a little bit more money to play with. So, and like you said, Libre, earlier in the show, other teams have seen what we got going on here in Denver. So that should be appetizing for them to get on their phones and tell their agents, hey, if Denver calls, tell them I'm coming, or call them, say, hey, I'm available. Come get me.
Yeah.
Type of things. So they should really go get a tight end if they're not going to draft for one. They should go and get a wide receiver if they're not going to draft for one. Or they should see what they can do in search in terms of linebackers. Now, the defense part is probably going to be a question mark because we need to see if Vance Joseph is going to leave or stay. If he leaves and they bring in a new defensive coordinator, they might change schemes. They might rotate players, move this, move that.
Yeah.
So that's why putting that on the back burner is ideal. But the number one thing is you have to build around Bo Nix. And tight end and wide receiver is the perfect place to start. And if they can do that in free agency and then try to go for a running back in the draft. I know we talked about Ashton. I honestly don't think he'd fall that low. The Broncos would probably have to trade up with somebody a couple spots if he's still on the board. I say if he's still up there within like 5 spots of where Denver is, the Broncos would probably, pull the trigger, trade a key piece to move up 5 spots and maybe a pick next year to get Ashton.
Going back to the ownership itself, from the time that they bought the team to now, they've talked about championship, bringing back that championship mentality back here to Denver. And that's what they've done. You've seen from the day one that they've taken over to now where we're at now. You can see the progression of what they've been able to do of putting some good product and allowing the people they hire to get some good product out there and starting to be at that championship level. Because there was a couple of years still when it was still through the ownership itself with Pat Bowlen, when through when Joe Ellis and John Elway were in there, they did not care. It felt like they didn't care about what was out there on the team itself. And to go out there and be in the stands, already walking into the stands, knowing that we're going to be watching bad football, was hard doing that for several years. But once they bought the team, and you could see every year so far, they've put money into the team itself, replaced the field, which costs them over $400,000 every time they do it, to replace the field, and so that the players can have a nice field and safe field to be playing on. Just in seeing that itself, players should see that automatically and say, oh my God, look at how much they're taking care of this. Look at what they're doing for the team. They're putting all this money in there. Yes, we might be the richest in the whole league, but look at what is available for them. And I'm super excited for what they're doing and what they're allowing the people that they hire to do their jobs and say, hey, let's get this out there. And we got the right people, I feel, right now in the spots that need to be to make this happen and make us really competitive coming here in the future. And it's the NFL's better be on the watch out, because the Broncos are going to be championships, and I feel like we'll have something there. I can't remember who said it. They're saying, I think it was just on the NFL Network or on ESPN, I can't remember where I saw it, that Sean Payton, Bo Nix, George Payton, they're all going to be in here winning a championship for the Broncos. And it's not just one, it's going to be multiple, just the way that they're building the team right now.
I really do, man. I'm telling you, that needs to be like on a t-shirt somewhere. But to be honest with you, Libre, like, to play devil's advocate, I still have the picture of that somebody put up there when Russell Wilson got drafted, and it's like, first of many championships to come.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm trying not to get on that high horse again because I really bit more than I can chew on that one, and man, did I have to eat a lot of crow after that, just that first season with Denver.
Yeah.
But I am really hopeful because obviously Bo Nix is not Russell Wilson. And the only way that Bo Nix can fail is if Sean Payton fails him. If the management does not give Bo Nix the weapons he needs to be better, then they'll fail him. Okay. Going back to what we talked about with Drew Lock, same thing.
Oh, yeah.
If they would have kept things the way they were, maybe the Broncos offense would have been in a whole different situation. Maybe Drew Lock may not have struggled. We saw that he had chemistry with Noah Fant, just like we saw that Bo Nix had chemistry with what's his name? The wide receiver. His wide receiver from Oregon. I can't think his name.
Franklin.
Franklin, thank you. Troy Franklin. So we hope that chemistry continues and it's something that the Broncos can thrive upon, because the one thing that really sticks in my craw is that a lot of people, even seeing what they have in Bo Nix, and I'm talking about people outside of Broncos country, is that they still look down on us. Like, what more do you need to see for us to convince you that Bo Nix is our guy? Yes, he's not going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's going to be Jaden Daniels, regardless of what happens this weekend in Detroit. But Bo Nix wasn't ever trying to win that competition. He was trying to win the competition here in Denver. And I don't care what anybody says. I will say it again, just like I said it at the start of training camp. Zach Wilson Jarrett Stidham are not the ones that would have gotten us to this point.
No,
I don't believe that for an inch.
Zach
Wilson would have been leading in competition for interceptions, and Jarrett Stidham, I'm sorry, like that whole spark thing that Sean Payton tried to spoon feed us last year for those last two games, there was absolutely no spark there. It was a lighter without butane. That's exactly what it was. In Spanish, it was the puras chispas, just sparks, but no like fire type of thing. So the fact that those two guys stayed on a Broncos roster and got paid all that money is still a testament as to how serious the owners are. That money to them, they will burn if they need to, in order, kind of like the mentality that Jerry Jones has, except that the Broncos ownership is actually doing something about it, and that they're not as egotistical as Jerry Jones is, whereas Jerry Jones has the ultimate word. He's the GM, he's the president, he's everything. And if he could be his own quarterback, he would,
Yeah, right.
But it is really uplifting to see and hear from an ownership like that says, hey, first of all, they think Broncos country. Second of all, they promised us that, hey, hold your heads up high. This year wasn't our year, but we're really working to try to get it to be. And to be honest with you, Libre, I believe it. And I think that next year we're really going to take a really big step forward. And in 2026, when the Russell Wilson deal is completely off the books and money and salary cap won't be such as big of an issue, that's when the Broncos are really going to be making some noise. I mean, next year they're gonna make some noise, but the following year, watch out.
No, absolutely. And then just going back to Bo Nix himself, now right at the end of the season, he came out and saying that he was playing with a broken back, which was ridiculous. The toughness that he has as well, that grit that you have, your starting quarterback is out there playing with a broken back. And then now that I think about it, because it happened against the Raiders, that in the first half of the Raider game there in Vegas, and then the following game himself, they played that Monday night versus Cleveland. You could, just thinking about it and seeing that and all that, he did not run. They told him not to run at all, and you could see that right away. And I feel that's part of why that game was a lot closer than what it should have been in the long run itself. And then we had the bye week, so he had that extra week there to try to recover. But he says that he's good now. All the what is it called, like a transverse fractures or something like that. So those are all healed up because it takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks. It said, because I had to look it up, and it said 4 to 8 weeks for it to be fully healed, and they can't really do nothing besides rest and doing rest. And he was going out there and still competing, and that's why he didn't run. And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense now as to why that week he didn't run that much.
Yeah, I mean, I did read that too, and I know it was a fact and everything, but unfortunately, I have to stick with what I said because I said the same thing about last year with Mahomes. Like, if you suit up there to go out there and play, if you're not 100%, if you're sick or whatever, and you know it, and you still go out there and play, hey, that's can't really use that as an excuse.
No, exactly.
But I do understand it sucks. I have talked to a couple of people in Broncos country who were really upset that they were just like, why the hell did you put him out there if you knew he was hurt? And to me, I was like, well, would you have been more confident in putting Jarrett Stidham out there and tell him, hey, go out there and beat Cincinnati? Or what's his name? Zach Wilson.
Zach
and hey,
Wilson,
go out there and go into a shootout with Cleveland. Like, they weren't going to do that, and you would literally be robbing Bo Nix of, learning to play the game. Now, if they say he could still play and it wasn't something where it was affecting his throw or his ability to read and, and on all that stuff, then so be it. But he gave us that thriller against Cleveland, that thriller against Cincinnati, and that beat down against the backups in Kansas City. So, and that's just what he is. He basically had to do it to let people in Broncos country know, hey, I'm the guy. Mm-hmm. This is my team. There's not going to be a quarterback competition going forward because it's me.
Exactly.
There's not going to be none of that because we've had all that stuff since the whole Teddy Bridgewater thing where it was just something that didn't need to be, but unfortunately it was. So I'm just glad it's over. Now we can concentrate on building around Bo Nix and get him the weapons that need to be gotten for the defense, whether Joseph stays or goes, to go and get him whatever key pieces he needs, the linebacker core, pass rush. I think we're okay on pass rush. Casa de Bonito is a beautiful thing, and Jonathan Cooper. Now, if you want to go out and get like an extra key piece, rotational piece, I'm all for it, as long as you don't break the bank in that aspect. And then if you can find another safety, to kind of, give PJ Locke some competition or something that can really build chemistry with Brandon, then I'm all for it. So there are a lot of areas where the Broncos can and need to improve. The question now, Libre, and for you folks listening to us out there, is can the Broncos execute and get the players that they need? Free agency is definitely going to be key this year because they have to go out and plug some of these holes up. And whatever they can't get through free agency, try to go through the draft. So and D-Rock jumping in here saying carrying your team on a broken back, that's effing crazy, dog.
No, and it's so true. Like, he carried this team for a good majority of the time, and look what happened to him. Look, he broke his back and he was still doing it, and he's the guy. He's that effing dog. Like, how are you saying that, D-Rock? Like, he is that guy. And you know what? And that's what excites me for this guy being our quarterback of the future, because we know whatever's going to happen, he's going to go and rough through that, and he's going to be that dog out there. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, for all my wrestling nerds out there, it's kind of like Kurt Angle winning a gold medal with a broken freaking neck.
Yeah, that's like the craziest thing too. Hearing his story of back years ago when I heard that, I was like, man, that's a dog right there. Like, but yeah, I love it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the 1 o'clock hour, which means it is time for Libre and I to go into a little bit of Broncos Overtime. Now, unfortunately, this is going to be the first Broncos talk overtime segment where we won't be able to talk anything Denver because, unfortunately, the Broncos are not going to be in it. So, from starting today all the way up until week 1, we probably won't be able to mention anything Broncos related. So, we do apologize in advance, but we can guarantee you that Libre and I have been guaranteed that the Broncos front office is working on changing that.
I heard it from the source today. Remember, we heard that source today.
Yeah, we heard it from a good source today. Exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, the wild card round is past us. Right now, we have the divisional round. So, Libre and I are going to start with the AFC, which is basically the Houston Texans who beat the Chargers, going up against Kansas City, who had a bye week. Now, I will say, Libre and I've talked to a couple of people who weren't necessarily Chiefs fans, but they're Chief Mahomes fanatics, I guess you could say, that they believe that the Chiefs are going to dog walk the Texans. And I said the same thing about the Chargers doing that to the Texans last week, and I was wrong. It was the complete opposite. The Texans defense completely came out of nowhere and made Justin Herbert throw four interceptions, where all season long Herbert only threw 3. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you that the postseason, as we said before, is a completely different animal. What you did in the regular season does not matter, does not transfer over to what you do in the regular season. I will say that to me, it is concerning, and I'm trying to say this being professional. It is concerning that the last time Patrick Mahomes threw a football was at Christmas. On Christmas Day. That was the last time any of the starters suited up. None of them played week 18, and none of them played last week because it was their bye week. So while they did get rest comes with rust.
Yep.
Okay. So they're going to go in there, even though it's at Arrowhead, and even though the Chiefs already beat the Texans at Arrowhead. But if that same Texans defense shows up and just lays a wallop on Patrick Mahomes, even as good as the Chiefs defense is, I don't see. I'd be shocked if it was an upset. Now, unfortunately, you guys know me. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Texans are going to dog walk them, because they're not. I still didn't see enough from C.J. Stroud to say, hey, that guy's back. And Nico Collins continues to be a threat in the offense, but unfortunately, you guys might not want to hear it. I don't believe it, but I have to call it like I see it. I do think that the Chiefs are going to slither by and make it to the championship game. But let me tell you, I hope to be wrong on this, because if the Chiefs lose and the Texans go to the AFC championship game, oh, you better believe that it's going to be a great day for anybody not a Chiefs fan.
Very much so. And I agree with you 100% on that. This is going to be one of those another game throughout the season for Kansas City. It's going to be a very close game all the way to the very last possession, which they somehow manage the game perfectly to have that last possession so that they have the capability of winning it or just getting lucky. Like the week 1 when they played Baltimore, getting that toe on the line should have been a touchdown. If he would have just cut his toenail at the beginning of the game, he would have had that touchdown. Blocking the kick versus the Broncos, So for me, I want Houston as well to go into KC and to just wallop them. They're going to have a little bit of rust. They might be like that first half of the game where it might look like the Texans are going to be out there and balling and going crazy over them, but they just know how to manage that game itself, where they'll probably come out at the end and pull it off itself. So, like you said, it does hurt me to pick KC, but I feel like KC will win this game, but it's going to be that last possession of the game to win it.
Yeah, and a little bit of the refs help, I feel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Going on to the second AFC divisional game, we have the Buffalo Bills versus the Baltimore Ravens. Now that's probably going to be the game of I don't know. It's going to be that, and the NFC game we're going to get into a little bit are going to be the two games of the week, because those two games are just going to be crazy. And if you guys remember, during their first matchup, the Ravens completely destroyed Buffalo in Baltimore. But this time they're going to be playing in Buffalo, I believe.
In Buffalo. Yep, they
Yeah.
are in Buffalo.
Yeah, thank you. And they're supposed to be playing in what looks to be like another big snowstorm that's about to hit Buffalo at that. So, you know what? As much as I want to give credit to Josh Allen and James Cook and what they did to Denver, the Ravens aren't the Broncos, obviously. And there's just something about Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry where, I mean, you think you can stop one and then the other one just kind of gets you. Like those read options, if you get it wrong, they will punish you, you know. And the only advantage that the Broncos, that the Bills have is that if that snowstorm hits, because snow is going to limit what Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson can do, because running is almost pretty much not impossible, but it's really hard because you can't cut, you can't do what you can on regular grass, no matter what cleats you have on. And it becomes more of a passing game instead of a running game. Now, I will say it's really ironic that the Ravens picked Deontay Jackson back up from waivers, so he's back with the Ravens as of this
Today. Yeah.
So, but before I turn it over to you, Libre, I think there's going to be a whole lot closer than people think. It could come down to just a simple field goal if the snow is like what we saw in that Steelers and Bengals game. I think it was the Bengals. No, I'm sorry, Steelers and Browns.
Browns.
But
yeah.
I'm gonna say that I think the Ravens are gonna do just enough to get past Buffalo and go to the AFC Championship game.
This for me, I called the game last weekend where I said it was the Bucks. The Bucks and Washington being the game of the week. And it was, because that was the only one that was the closest one of all of those. And this one, for me, this is going to be the game of this weekend. It's MVP candidate versus MVP candidate. We're going to really, they've already put their votes in. They'll have that figured out here the Thursday before the Super Bowl itself. And, but what better way to say, hey, let's go to I wish this was to go to the Super Bowl instead of going to the AFC Championship game. But I do feel like Baltimore does have a little bit more than what the Bills have capable of being done for this game itself. If it is going to be a snowstorm, and I feel opposite of you, I think the run game is going to be better. And I feel because of that, Derrick Henry is not more of a cut kind of guy. He's more like, I'm cutting that one time and hitting that hole hard, and you try stopping me. Like, that's the type of running back he is, and he's going to be able to do that in any type of weather, rain, snow, whatever it is. He's going to be able to do that, and they're going to be hard to stop him. And because as well, the jerseys are now going to be a little bit slippier. They're going to be wet. Can't grab onto him as well, and he could just bull rush you over and go 60, 70 yards for the touchdown itself. So it's going to be a close game. But I do feel like the Ravens will pull it off and head over to the AFC Championship game versus the Chiefs.
Wow. Let's move over to the NFC now. Lions versus the Commanders. That's going to be a really, really interesting game. The Lions are coming off of their first seed bye week, and the Commanders literally doinked their way past the Bucs to get into this game.
Yeah.
But Jaden Daniels, I mean, that man, he has a chance to really, really pull off a huge upset, just like the Texans do against the Chiefs that we talked about a few minutes ago. I don't want to put anything past them, but I don't have, it's not that I don't have confidence in Jaden Daniels, it's that I don't have confidence in that Washington defense. And right now the Lions are basically playing like, hey, we're gonna run the ball down your throat. And if you're asking me which one is probably more likely to make a mistake, it's probably going to be the Commanders. I think that just for the simple fact that Jaden Daniels is still a rookie, the pressure's on him in the division round. He's never been in this situation before. So, as you guys know, like we said in the postseason, mistakes like interceptions and fumbles and all that stuff, if you commit them, they cost you a whole lot dearly. If you don't believe me, just go ask Baker Mayfield. And on that handoff was the complete momentum changer for that game, and the Buccaneers were not able to capitalize after that, or come back from that, I should say. So I still think that the Lions are going to be sharp coming off of their bye week. They needed it more than anybody because they were the only team that had a week 5 bye week, and they've been playing football for nonstop for like the last 3 months. So I think that that was some much needed rest for them. So I'm going to say that Detroit goes to the next round, but Jaden Daniels and the Commanders are really, really going to learn a lesson in this game and try to get even further next year.
No, I agree with you with that. I also feel like Jaden Daniels hasn't faced a defense like these Lions have. This rest only helps this defense itself. Just the way that they ended the season with the Vikings, not allowing them to do anything, especially once they got into the red zone. They're straight up just stingy and not letting them in. And then look at what happened this last weekend with the Vikings on Monday night. With the Vikings, they still couldn't do anything versus the Rams. But the Lions, I think, overpower what Washington has right now. Again, Washington was one of those top, bottom league teams that just happened to turn their season over this year itself. They don't have all the key components that they need to be at that championship level. I can see them here in the future as being there, but this isn't the year for them, unfortunately. But the Lions is definitely going to go in there, and it's not going to be a close game, unfortunately. I think by the end of the third, going into the fourth, the Lions are definitely going to be taking over the game itself.
Yeah. But hey, man, shout out to the Commanders for making it that far, and
Absolutely.
with Dan Quinn in their first year. So credit to them. But if they do pull up that upset, and it's going to send the NFL community into
right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then the final game for the NFC divisional round is the Los Angeles Rams versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, you got Kyron Williams versus Saquon Barkley, Jared Goff versus Jalen Hurts, and that Vic Fangio defense versus a really good, hungry defensive front line in the Rams, which I'm pretty sure the Broncos were really proud to see them getting 9 sacks on Sam Darnold last week. I mean, 9 sacks is crazy, but that just goes to show you that those guys are hungry and they're ready, So for me, there's just something about Jalen Hurts that just doesn't feel right. I don't know if he's playing scared. I don't know if he's playing injured, but having the weapons that he has and keeping the Packers way too close when it really should have been a blowout, to me, there's just something that doesn't feel right. The funny thing that went viral with AJ Brown in that book that he pulled out about inner peace, and how it went from being like the book on Amazon that was ranked like 200 something thousand all the way to number 1 in one day is insane. But the only way, I'm actually going to go crazy here and say that I think the Rams are going to win this game, just for the simple fact that while Vic Fangio's defense, their front line is also scary good, they're the ones that, again, the best way to beat them is to, tire them out. And that's what I think Matt Stafford's going to do. He's got, even if you bottle up Kyron Williams, he's got Puka Nacua, he's got Cooper Kupp, even though he only had 1 catch on Monday, but it was a very effective catch. And I just have a feeling that the Rams are going to upset. And I think Matt Stafford, his veteranship over Jalen Hurts, unless Jalen Hurts can finally, play like the Hurts that we've seen him play before and be that guy, then he needs to be, because even if the Eagles do sneak past the Rams, the Lions are not going to be a team that's going to give you a chance to keep you in the game. So I'm going to say Rams.
All right. Well, this is our disagreement.
Again,
and now
last game.
and now we're fighting. No. But no, I feel like the Eagles will definitely come out and win this game. It's going to be a good competitive game, and it's going to come down to Saquon. If Saquon has 140 yards, I feel like he'll have 140 yards and 2 to 3 touchdowns. And if he does, it's going to be an easy cakewalk for them, because he's also a guy that could be in the mix with the MVP candidate itself. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to win it, even though he hit over 2,000 yards and the 9th player in NFL history to do it. But I feel like Lamar will definitely win that battle itself. But if he goes off, there's nothing that the Rams defense, I think, is going to be able to do to stop this team itself, because they're just that good. And then talking about Hurts, yeah, he was out a couple of weeks because of a concussion. So he was out there. It could be where he's just trying to get in there, getting the little haziness that's still out of there, even though he cleared concussion protocol because he was in there during the game. But he could still have that in the back of his mind as well. Like, oh my God, like this, and another concussion can happen at any moment. So it's very possible. But with the way that he is and the way that they're competitive, I feel like they're going to go out there and have a good competitive game, but come out on top.
I mean, either way you slice it, Libre, I think that we're in for a big surprise, just like we were with Washington beating the Bucks. So I feel like 3 of these games are going to be pretty much like everybody thinks, and there's going to be one game where it's just going to be like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, it happens every year. It always happens every year. And that's the best. That's what I love about like the NFL and how they say it's any given Sunday, like anything can happen. So, and that's what I love about the way that the NFL playoffs is set up, is like you only do one game and that's it. Like you need to be on top of your game on this. And if not, you're done. It's not like basketball. It's not like hockey where it's a best of 7 series. Like it's one and done. If you don't have that game, then you're out.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached our time limit here on Broncos Talk. We'd like to thank everybody in our chat today. Mark from GA, D-Rock, Shai Vargas for joining us in the chat. And for those of you watching us live, ladies and gentlemen, Libre and I would like to remind you to please make sure you subscribe, share, comment, and like here on the Orange and Blue Network. All your support is very, very greatly much appreciated. Also, please make sure you like and subscribe on the MHRT Network. Comment, share, like on all of their great programming. We really do appreciate your support. If you'd like to follow us on our socials, please make sure you follow us. Our socials are right there on the bottom. Mine is at a 6'10" Mexican. Libre's is at Bronco Libre 5280. For those of you not being able to join us here and listening to us on audio after the fact, please make sure you give us a 5-star rating, reviews. If you do, please make sure you screenshot, send them to us, so that way we can give you a shout out here on the show. For any business inquiries, you can email at broncostalk2020@gmail.com. Shout out to W for being a sponsor of today's show. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you watch Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue, the flagship show here on the Orange and Blue Network every single Tuesday. And please make sure to join us for all our Spanish speakers out there for Viva los Broncos with Bronco Libre and myself this and every single Friday depending on where you live. Please make sure you check for show times in your area. Bronco Libre, it has been great calling these last few weeks with you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
I look forward to a really, really, hopefully crazy and awesome offseason as we get ready for 2025 Broncos football.
I agree. Like, I feel like this offseason is going to be really fun and exciting, especially for Broncos country in general. For where we're at, where we ended the season at, and then what we already know what we need going forward. And I feel like our leadership here, our ownership group, Sean Payton, George Payton, they're going to be in there. They're already working hard on who are we going to get out of the draft? They've already been reviewing film, like doing all that, doing all these interviews with these kids. So I'm just excited. I'm here for it. Once the season ends, we're going to find out all the true free agents and then try to talk to their agents saying, hey, bring them on over to Denver. We have great things happening, and it's going to be awesome. I'm super excited. I haven't been pumped for an off season in a very long time.
Me too. So for Bronco Libre, my name is Alan Diaz, and this has been Broncos Talk on the Orange and Blue and MHRT networks. We give you a Mahai salute to everybody out there. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you guys next week. And before I forget, just want to give a quick shout out to my friend Shannon. Hi, Shannon. Thanks for watching.
Hi, Shannon from Bronco Libre.
From Bronco Libre, I'm Adan. Have a good night, everybody. Go Broncos, baby.
Let's go.